Hey guys, and welcome back to another Mystery Bit video right here on TetraBitGaming, the series where we explore mysterious stories, rumors, and hoaxes in gaming. It's time again for the annual Creepypasta video on this channel, and this time one that many of you have been asking me to read for a long time. It's almost like you've never heard it before or something. I know this one's been done to the ground, but it's been years since I've revisited this creepypasta, and I wanted to see just how well it holds up now. Anyways, my friends, grab some chili dogs, dim the light, let's find out why Sonic.exe keeps people up at night. I'm a total Sonic the Hedgehog fan, much like everyone else. I like the newer games, but I don't mind playing the classics either. I don't think I've ever played glitchy or hacked games before, though I don't think I want to play any after the experience I had. It started out on a nice summer afternoon. I was playing Sonic Unleashed until I noticed out of my peripheral vision that the mailman had arrived and put something in my mailbox as usual and left. I paused my game to go see what I got in the mail. The only thing in the mailbox was a CD-ROM case and a note. I took it inside. I looked at the note first and realized it was from my dear friend Kyle, whom I hadn't heard from in 2 weeks. I knew it was his because I recognized his handwriting, though what was weird is how it looked. It looked badly written and scratchy and somewhat difficult to read, as if Kyle was having a hard time writing it down and did it in a hurry. This is what he wrote. "Tom, I can't take it anymore. I had to get rid of this thing somehow before it was too late, and I was hoping you would do it for me. I can't do it, he's after me, and if you don't destroy this CD, he'll come after you too. He's too fast for me. Please, Tom, destroy this godforsaken disc before he comes after you too. It's too late for me. Destroy the disc and you'll destroy him, but do it quick, otherwise he'll catch you. Don't even play the game, it's what he wants. Just destroy it. Please." Well, that was certainly weird. Even though Kyle is my best friend and I haven't seen him in 2 weeks, I didn't do what he asked me. I didn't think that a simple video game would do anything bad to him. After all, it's just a game, right? So I decided to look at the disc, and surprise, surprise, it looked like any ordinary computer CD-R disc, except it had the words Sonic.exe written on it with black marker, and it was much unlike Kyle's handwriting, meaning that he must have got it from someone else, like a pawn shop or eBay. Seeing Sonic on the disc actually got me really excited, and I wanted to play this game since I'm a huge Sonic fan. So I went up to my room, turned on my computer, put in the disc, and installed the game. When the title screen popped up, I noticed it was the first Sonic the Hedgehog game for the Sega Genesis. Awesome, I've always been a big fan of this classic. The first thing I noticed that was out of place was when I pressed start, there was a split second where I saw the title image turned into something much different. The sky had darkened, the title emblem was rusted and ruined, the Sega 1991 was now instead Sega 666, and the water had turned red, like blood. But the freakiest thing in that split-second frame was Sonic. His eyes were pitch black and bleeding with 2 glowing red dots staring right at me. And his smile had stretched wider up to the edges of his face. I was rather disturbed about that image when I saw it, though I figured that it was just a glitch, so I forgot about it. After it cut to black, it stayed like that for about 10 seconds or so, and then another weird thing happened. The save file select from Sonic the Hedgehog 3 popped up, which didn't make any sense. What was this doing in the first Sonic game? Then, if things weren't weird enough, I noticed something else was off. The background was the dark, cloudy sky of the Bad Future Stardust Speedway level from Sonic CD, and there were only 3 save files. The music playing was that creepy Caverns of Winter's music from Earthbound, only it was extended and seemed to have been in reverse. And the level preview image on the save file was just red static for all 3 files. What freaked me out even more was the character select. It only showed Tails, Knuckles, and to my surprise, Dr. Robotnik. Now I was sure something was up. I mean, how can you play as Robotnik in a classic Sonic game? That's when I realized that this wasn't a glitchy game. It was a hacked one. Yeah, it definitely looked hacked, but as a smart gamer, I wasn't scared, or at least I tried not to be. I told myself that this was just a hacked game, and there was nothing wrong with that. Anyways, after mustering up some courage, I picked File 1 and chose Tails. Then the game froze for about 5 seconds, and I heard a creepy pixelated laugh that sounded an awful lot like that Kefka guy from Final Fantasy, before again cutting to black. The screen stayed black for about 10 seconds or more, then it showed the typical level splash screen, except the simplistic shapes were different shades of red, and the text only showed Hill Act 1. The screen faded in and the level title vanished, revealing Tails in the Green Hill Zone from Sonic 1. The music was different though. It sounded like some peaceful melody, only in reverse. Anyways, I started playing and had Tails run to the right like you would in any of the classic Sonic games. But what was odd was that as Tails was running along the level, there was nothing but flat ground and a few trees for about 5 minutes. And as I ran to the right, the peaceful music started to slow down and get lower and lower in pitch. I suddenly saw something and I stopped to see what it was. It was one of the small animals lying dead on the ground, bleeding. Even Tails had a shocked and saddened look on his face that I never saw him have before. So I had him move along and he kept that worried look on his face. As I kept moving to the right, I saw more and more dead animals as Tails moved past them, looking more and more worried as the music lowered and lowered even further. I was shocked to see them all dead in a Sonic game. They looked like somebody killed them in a rather gruesome way. A squirrel was hanged on a tree with what appears to be its entrails hanging out. A bunny had all 4 of its limbs torn off, and a duck had its eyes gouged out and its throat slit. I felt sick to my stomach when I saw this massacre, and apparently so did Tails. After a few more seconds, there were no more animals, and the music seemed to have completely stopped. Even so, I still had Tails move along. A bit later, Tails was running up a hill and then he stopped, and then I saw why. Sonic was there on the other side of the screen with his eyes closed. Tails looked happy to see Sonic, but then his smile faltered. Obviously, Sonic wasn't responding to him, pretty much acting as if he wasn't even there. Tails walked slowly towards Sonic, even without my input, so I thought this had to be a cutscene, right? Suddenly I began a growing feeling of dread as Tails walked closer to Sonic to get his attention. I felt that Tails was in danger and something bad was about to happen. I heard faint static growing louder as Tails was but inches away from Sonic and stopped and stuck his hand out to touch him. That foreboding feeling in my gut was growing stronger and I felt the urge to tell Tails to get away from Sonic as the static grew louder. Suddenly, in a split second, I saw Sonic's eyes open and they were black with those red glowing dots just like that title image, though there wasn't a smile. When that happened, the screen turned black and the static sound had stopped. It stayed black for about 7 seconds, and then white text appeared forming a message saying, "Hello, do you want to play with me?" At this point, I was pretty creeped out. I didn't want to continue with this game, but my curiosity got the better of me and I was taken to a different level with the level title now saying, "Hide and Seek." This time, I was in the Angel Island level from Sonic 3, and it looked like everything was on fire. Tails looked as though he was scared out of his wits this time. He actually looked at me and was making frantic gestures as if he wanted to get out of this area as fast as possible. This was super unsettling. I mean, Tails was actually breaking the fourth wall, trying to tell me to get him out of there. So I pressed down on the right arrow key as hard as I could and made him run as fast as possible. All while a pixelated version of that theme when you meet Sonic at the Ark as Robotnik from Sonic Adventure 2 was playing in the background. I was trying to help Tails escape from whatever he was trying to run from. Suddenly, I heard that creepy laugh again. That awful Kefka laugh. Suddenly, I started seeing flashes of Sonic popping up everywhere on the screen, again with those black and red eyes. The music had also changed to the signature suspenseful drowning jingle as I saw Sonic behind Tails slowly gaining on him. Sonic wasn't running, he was flying. The flying pose this sprite was using looked very similar to Metal Sonic's flying pose in Sonic CD, except here it was just Sonic. This time, Sonic had the most deranged looking grin on his face. He looked as though he was enjoying the torment he was giving Tails. Then suddenly, when Tails tripped, the music stopped and Sonic vanished. Tails just lay there crying. The scene was rather upsetting, and I almost teared up myself. But then, Sonic appeared right in front of Tails, and Tails looked up in horror. Blood started to come down Sonic's blackened eyes as a grin slowly grew on his face as he looked down at the horrified fox. I could do nothing but watch. In a split second, Sonic lunged at Tails right before the screen went black. There was a loud screeching noise that lasted for about 5 seconds. The text from before returned, only this time it said, "You're too slow. Want to try again?" And then that god-awful laugh came along with it. I was so shocked by what just happened. Did Sonic murder Tails? No, he couldn't have. He and Tails are supposed to be best friends, right? Why would Sonic do that to him? I was then brought back to the character select screen, but the save file that had Tails was different. Tails was no longer in the box itself, but in the TV screen, which was flickering with that red static. Tails' expression scared me. His eyes were black and bleeding, his orange fur had gone black, and he had an expression of anguish on his face. Trying to ignore it, I picked Knuckles next. The laugh came again, and the screen cut to black and stayed there for another 10 seconds. This time, the level read, "You can't run." I was really freaked out by now. I couldn't really tell if this was a glitch or a hack or some kind of sick, twisted joke, or anything really. But despite all my fears, I kept playing. The next level looked much different. It had the background of the Scrap Brain Zone, but the sky background looked like the main menu. It had that dark, reddish, cloudy sky. But it was the music that creeped me out the most. It sounded like Giga's theme right after you beat Pokey in Earthbound. I also noticed that Knuckles looked afraid just like Tails did, though not as much, more rather he looked a little unnerved. Knuckles broke the fourth wall just like Tails did, and looked as if he wasn't sure what was going on, but I made him move to the right anyway. Knuckles ran down the straight pathway in this dark level, and as he did, the screen started to flicker red a few times. And then, that laugh came again. Then after a few seconds of running, I noticed several bloodstains on the metallic ground. I felt a growing sense of fear, again thinking something horrible was about to happen to Knuckles. He looked nauseated walking down this blood-stained road, but I still kept him going. Then again, Sonic appeared right in front of Knuckles with those black and red eyes, and that red static appeared again. Then the static stopped, and all that was remaining on screen was text saying, "Found you." Sonic found Knuckles already? What was going on? Anyway, red static came again, and then I was back to the level. Knuckles looked like he was panicking, and Sonic was nowhere to be found. And this time, that high-pitched squealing from the final boss in Silent Hill 1 was playing. Was this some kind of boss battle with Sonic? Then Sonic appeared out of nowhere right behind Knuckles in what appeared to be pixelated black smoke. I made Knuckles turn and then punch Sonic, but Sonic vanished in pixelated smoke. Another cutscene started playing as Knuckles fell to his knees and clutched his head sobbing. I felt his agony. Sonic was actually driving us both crazy. And then in a split second, Sonic lunged at Knuckles and the screen again went black with another distorted screeching sound that lasted for at least 3 seconds. Another text message appeared. So many souls to play with, so little time. Would you agree? What is going on? I began thinking that Sonic was actually trying to talk to me through the game. I was then brought back again to the main menu, and this time the second file box had Knuckles in the TV screen. His red fur had darkened to a reddish gray, his hair was dripping with blood, and his eyes were black and bleeding too. And he had that look of sadness on his face. I began to think that those might be the actual characters trapped in those TV screens, but I couldn't believe it. I didn't want to believe it. This was way too much, so I shut off the game and took a break. I took a nap, but I wish I hadn't, because I then began having the most disturbing nightmare. Everything around me was dark, though I was under the light given off by a lamp that hung high above my head. I could hear the cries of Knuckles and Tails nearby. They were saying stuff like, "Help us. Why did you give us to him?" and "Run away before he gets you too." Their cries died out as I then heard Sonic laugh. His laugh, it sounded a lot like that distorted Kefka laugh. "You're a lot of fun to play with, kid, just like your friend Kyle," though he didn't last long. I was scared and looking around for the source of the voice. "Won't be long now until you join him and all my other friends." I saw him walking toward me, flickering in and out in several directions. "You can't run, kid. You're in my world now, just like the others." Then, as Sonic grabbed me, I saw his bleeding black and red eyes, grinning face. And then I woke up. After a couple of hours, I decided to continue playing the game. I don't know why, but I had to know. I had to figure out why this was happening. So I booted up my computer, loaded the game, and selected Robotnik next. I still thought that was wacky, playing as Robotnik. But anyway, the level title appeared again, and this time it just had 3 dots, which I found really freaky. This time, I was in some kind of hallway. Didn't really look like it was from any of the classic Sonic games. The floor was shiny and checkered, the walls were a dark grayish purple with animated candles, and a few dark bloodstains here and there. The music this time was oddly pleasant. Piano playing a rather sad yet peaceful song, but I knew better. This was the song that played in Hill Act 1, only this time it wasn't in reverse. Robotnik didn't look entirely nervous like Tails and Knuckles did, but he did have a suspicious look on his face, as if he was just a bit paranoid. Even though I was scared out of my mind about what was going to happen, I again had Robotnik continue onward. I then stopped at a long flight of stairs leading downward. Now I was nervous. Even Robotnik seemed unsure of himself. As I controlled Robotnik down the stairs, I noticed that the walls were getting darker and more reddish. The red torches were now an eerie blue. Then we landed onto another hallway. This one was longer than the last one, or at least it felt like it. And then we headed down another flight of stairs. This one was much longer. And then I heard that horrid Kefka laugh again, and the music slowly faded until it was quiet. As it did, the walls turned more dark red and the torches were now a black flame. When Robotnik landed onto the third hallway, I noticed he now looked really creeped out, though he tried to hide it. I couldn't blame him. I was scared too. Suddenly, Sonic popped up right in front of Robotnik in the same manner as Knuckles, and then red static. The red static lasted for about 15 seconds, and then it showed me the most unpleasant image. It was a hyper-realistic image of Sonic standing in the darkness, where you can only see his face, while his head and torso faded into the darkness. And when I say hyper-realistic, I mean he looked so real that it looked like if you touched the screen, you could feel his fur. His eyes were wide and black, and once again he was crying blood. And there were 2 small glowing red dots in those black eyes staring right at me. His grin was wide and demonic. It literally stretched to the sides of his face like a Cheshire cat, except Sonic had fangs, very sharp fangs. And from the looks of it, he had stains of blood and small bits of flesh on his lips and fangs as if he ate some animal. I felt like he was actually looking at me, smiling at me. That face was now etched into my brain for good. Then the screen flickered with red static again 3 times, and on the 3rd time I heard the Kefka laugh, except this time it sounded distorted, demonic even. It went back to the image again, except this time there was the text, though it was messed up. But it was pretty much one of the most horrifying things I looked at since I had this game. I am God. It was when I read that message while looking at Sonic when it hit me. I realized right then and there. This Sonic was a monster. A pure evil, sadistic, all-powerful, nightmarish, demented monster. And all of his victims, including Tails, Knuckles, Robotnik, and possibly Kyle, are just his little toys. And this game is the very gateway into his chaotic, nightmarish world and the very hell his victims are trapped in. Then it stopped, and nothing remained but a black screen. As I sat there staring at the black screen, one last text came up. "Ready for round 2, Tom?" The Kefka laugh, now sounding more clear as if Sonic was right behind me, played again 3 times as I looked at that text in shock and confusion. Then, believe it or not, something even weirder happened. The computer shut itself off. I couldn't turn it back on, no matter what I did. So I just sat there, horrified by what just happened. Sonic is the very embodiment of evil. He tortures people who play his games in more ways than one. And then when he gets bored, he drags you into the game, literally drags you to hell, where he can play with you always as his toy. I can't get the game out of my computer. I'm pretty sure it's stuck there, but at least I managed to turn my computer back on now. After I sat there, I heard a voice right behind me, like a whisper. "Try to keep this interesting for me, Tom." I turned around to see where the voice came from, and what I saw made me scream. Sitting on my bed, staring right at me, was a Sonic plushie, creepily smiling, with bloodstains under its eyes. And that, my friends, is the story of Sonic.exe, and I hope you enjoyed it. What do you guys think? Do you think any parts of this creepypasta are possible? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, check out my other spooky-ish videos over on my channel by clicking on the card right here. And if you would like to support the channel, check out my merch at TetraBitGaming.com or consider becoming the latest TetraBit channel member by clicking the join button below. But as always guys, thank you all so much for tuning in, and I will see you